All right, all right, all right. Welcome everybody to another Terran Tuesday. I think I might actually dub this one the Tired Tuesday.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
everyone's a little sluggish, a little injured
definitely.
today. Yes, but how are you guys doing this lovely open mic night? We'll start off to Black Knight. How are you doing and how tired are you?
Mm, well, I'm I'm tired, but at least I don't have like actual uh new injuries apart from what I already am suffering from because I'm moving stuff. I'm packing stuff in preparation for a renovation, home renovation here, and I'm doing it all alone. Um, and today I was lucky to not trip and fall while carrying one of the heavier boxes. So yeah, and apart from that, I managed to complete and post the last episode of Lost Numbers, which I'm not sure if any of you, I think Snow read one of the episodes, if I'm not mistaken. But I was like, and 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 the minute I recovered after the near near fall and I put the box down, I remembered that Snow actually suffered significant injury, and I kept thinking about her. So yeah, that's like
That's
that's
you're just joy.
it's insignificant compared to yeah, it's nothing.
No, it's not insignificant when it happens to you. That's the whole point. You're always like, people are always like, man, that must be terrible. You get hurt. We can get the littlest thing and it will drive us up the wall. Then you'll get something huge and it'll be like, oh well, whatever, I'll make it. We're creatures of habit. We have a tendency to try to fall into our pattern, and if we're used to pain, we're okay with it. But when something new comes along, it's like the end of the world.
Yeah, because
Yeah, new things
that's
aren't
how
always good
things.
things.
Yeah,
New
new
things
things.
aren't always good things.
Almost always new things are. Well, not all new things, but in most cases, new things are shit.
Now, how about you, Snow? What's new this week? What's
Okay,
happening?
so I was on a job. Now, y'all know that I work with a private investigative agency, right? So I had a thing happen, and I was out at midnight, and I was trying to be cool. I was trying to be cool so I could go do something. And I was walking down a ramp, and the ramp was like a hybrid ramp and had a rail on it. And I was like, oh, cool. So I stepped off because I was headed towards the truck. And like after midnight, off of the deck of a rented, like double wide. It's not sketchy. It was actually a nice place, but it's like midnight. I'm trying to do a job. I fell off of a rented deck of a rented double wide, and I literally fell all the way like onto the concrete. And I thought I had broken my leg. I really did. It's mid.
Oh,
Wow.
oh, no, 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 no. This is not. This is terrible.
So it messed up my plans. I couldn't do that job. So my
You
husband,
think it
yeah,
messed up your plans? Really?
I did not
Oh,
cry. I did not cry. I have witnesses to tell you. I did not cry. I landed right below the knee, buddy. It was like right there, and on the edge of a concrete embankment. And so I'm like, okay, I'm being cool. I put ice on it. I do everything. I go the next morning and I go to an urgent care clinic because obviously the job's off at that point. I can't do it. And so I go to an urgent care clinic, and then there I am, and and they say, oh, it's not broken. It looks weird. It looks so weird. It has a big lump on it, and it looks
is
like
it sprained?
it's sprained, but it actually has a really deep, like it's called a hematoma, And so
Oh, yeah.
oh,
It's gathering water. It's gathering water.
yeah, it
Yeah.
looks like, yes, it looks like, oh, it's blood. It's actually blood. And so it looks like it, and I scraped it, and it looks horrible. It looks like a balloon on my leg. And so these are graphic descriptions. If you're sensitive, turn away now, because I'm an EMT, so I figured I dislocated it or something at least, and I didn't. So first of all, I'm feeling pretty good about my bone density at this point because I did not break it, but it was really hurting. So I'm like, okay, this will be cool. I'll just deal with it like I've dealt with every sprain in my life, because I'm kind of susceptible to like little sprains and dislocations and things because I have EDS. So I'm like, okay, cool. It's just a sprain. I'll be fine. I put it up for 3 days. I put the ice on it. That thing is not going away. My leg looks like an elephant foot. I mean, I'm like,
Yes.
it's
It's gathering water. Yeah.
bad. It's bad. I'm like, okay, so it doesn't hurt that much. I can put my weight on it. I walked around on it. I have a very different level of pain tolerance. I'm one of those people that I can handle pain really well. Usually I can sort of, power through, finish what I'm doing, and then,
Yes, we know. We know about the
yeah,
Texan ninjutsu. We know. Yes, but
also,
you actually have to go to the
yeah,
fucking doctor.
no, redheads don't feel pain the same way as other people do. That is actually a fact. I actually carry the gene, believe it or not. Even though my eyes are dark, I carry a redheaded gene. We process anesthetics differently. We handle pain differently. And so I was walking around on it. Everything's cool. Well, it's just not going away. It looks like I look like I've adopted another animal and put it on my leg. It's like literally, I'm like, what is this? Why does my leg look so weird? So I went, finally, it was like strange. Okay, so I took my little sock off last night, and I was like, and the toes were turning dark. And I'm like, this is it. This is the end. This is death. I'm going to die now. For whatever reason, I fell off this porch at midnight, and now I'm going to die. And I'm like, and my son looked at it, he's like, you got to go to the hospital, Mom. And so now, of course, it's at night because like I didn't want to go anywhere, but it's night. And I'm like, I don't want my toes to fall off. I don't want them to fall off. I need them for other things. And so I went ahead and went to the ER. My husband took me and we went there. Okay. And when we got there, if you're in EMS, there is a word you never say. That word is called the Q word. I'm going to spell it for you because if I say it, something bad will happen. Q-U-I-E-T. If you say that word when you go into a hospital, if you say anything about it, it will immediately turn into the biggest travesty you've ever seen. There'll be people everywhere. So you never say the Q word. Well, I did not say it, but it was very Q word. It was nobody there. I'm like, cool, I'm going to get in. I'm going to be seen. Immediately after I arrived, I have a thing that's called the black cloud effect. I am a little black cloud. If I show up, your bad luck will come. And so I showed up, and if I'm at a hospital, it's just what happens. So I walked in, and immediately 3 ambulances had to roll up full of people. Oh my gosh, I was there for like 3 hours. The whole thing fills up. Okay, so we know everybody here because it's a little bitty town. I know all the people that are working there. They come in, they say hi, they say howdy to me. They make little noises at my leg. Oh, that looks terrible. There are people, you're going to die. They didn't say that. They didn't say I was going to die, but they were like, it looks really bad. And so they stuck me over in the corner. They stuck me in the corner. They were being very nice to me. They let me put my little foot up. Well, okay, so all those ambulances rolled up. Well, they ran out of rooms, and I'm in one of the regular emergency rooms. Okay, so they go, well, we have to move you now. That's a small hospital. We have to move you. It's either this or the foyer. I'm like, okay, whatever. Let's go ahead and go back to this room. They took me back to the morgue room. Now, they don't know that I know this because I was an EMT. There's a big flat table on there. It's black. It's very quiet and bare in that room. I shouldn't have said cube. And so it's really quiet. And I realized this is where they take the bodies. So, like, I won't even get on that bed. I'm just, like, sitting over to the side going, okay, I'm going to sit over here, huddle in the corner. I'm not scared of the dead. It's not like that because I used to, I have to play with all that stuff all the time. But I'm like, I'm not getting in that thing. I'm not getting in there while I'm at the hospital. So I sat in that little armchair, just sitting with my foot up, waiting for these people to come. And finally the doctor shows up, and he was very sweet. He took 10 minutes. He's like, you need some antibiotics. You're going to have to do this. And like, so fortunately I'm not at death's door. So he gives that to me, but then I have to get the shots, and I have to go over and I have to lean on the bed where all the dead people lay. And so I'm like thinking, how many people have I actually brought into this hospital where they had to be over here? So I was like praying for them. Like, it was like, please be, forgive me for leaning on where you've been. If I knew you, I'm sorry. It's like there's some reason they're all hospitals. I think are haunted. I really do. I think all hospitals are haunted. There's just every one of them I've been in has like some sort of feeling about it. And so I was like literally over there on the bed where they put dead people, getting a shot with my little bottom in the air because I had to have a shot because they were going to give me one. And so then I had to do that, and I had to lay there thinking about dead people. And then when I finally get out, it's like 1 a.m. And I'm like, I can't even go get a burger because my town is so small that all the places are.
I was about to ask, what
No,
did you get to eat?
a burger. We can't even get a burger. And I'm like, so my toes aren't going to fall off. That was good. He said that was just like, that was just a sign that, I need to do what I need to do and give me a shot, and give me some more medicine. But so now the thing that really is bugging me, all this while, not only do I get to go, so it's like a spiritual journey. So I had my spiritual journey the other day. I talked about that. This is part of my spiritual journey. I got to go visit the place where they would roll me in if I ever had an accident. I literally got to visit the place where if they ever get stove up and I get killed, they're going to put me in that room. And I was like, dude, what if I'm touching the past or the present, or the future or something? And so it was really kind of creepy and weird at the same time, kind of cool. And I was like, that's so weird. And so I went all the way home and I was like, I want to try to stay alive, because now in the past, I would have gotten over this real easy. I would have been like, oh, I broke my leg. I'm fine. I'll get over it, and I would be all cool now. And I'm like, so now though I'm 62, breaking my leg or falling on something is not the same. And even though I bounced because I'm chubby and I'm already wrapped in my own personal, version of duct tape or like bubble tape, and I'm just like all bouncy and everything.
Bubble wrap.
Yeah, I got my own personal bubble wrap. It's called Me. And so I bounced. But even then, I'm not getting over it the way I did. So now I'm having to not only face my mortality, but I was sent to the morgue. So that is my adventure. That is what I've had going on. And I'm very excited about it. And I hope you all really enjoy it.
Yeah.
That is an adventure.
And my husband just brought me a frog. It's a toad, actually. He brought me a toad. I want to show you. It's like I love you, little toad. I love toads. I love little creatures. Don't let my doggies eat it. Y'all don't realize I'm sitting here actually on a farm right now with my foot up, and somebody just brought me a toad while we were live on the air. I should have taken.
That's funny.
Take a photo of it. Take a photo. Because I can't take a photo because I'm on the phone with you. So.
Why didn't you kiss the toad?
He's in the little bowl. He doesn't want me to kiss him right now.
Yeah.
Reach him.
That's as we say in the advertisement world. That's missed opportunities.
I'm so sorry. I can't kiss a toad anyway. I've already got a husband. If it turns into a prince, what am I going to do with him?
Marry him to your nieces, or like, I don't know.
I'd have to get some nieces and like, just put him out by the road with a sign, please, free prince, please stay.
Yeah, people like a lot of people don't realize, especially like even from the old fairy tales, that the arranged marriages they went both ways.
That's right.
Yeah,
they did.
Yeah, yeah.
His head cut and sprayed.
Well, I'm happy that you're recovering.
Thank you. Now that I've visited the morgue,
this is. I mean, I think it was Saturday, when I was throwing some like nylon bags of. Well, I was not technically throwing them, dumping them. I was carrying them to one of these special automatic containers, like for the refugees. Because we don't need them anymore. Like a lot of these clothes, they belong to my grandmother and my grandfather. They're gone, so we can't use them, but other people might. So I carried them, and I carried like 2 big sacks, and they were quite heavy. And when I was getting the second one, my foot kind of like I stepped sideways at an angle, and thankfully I was like walking slow
Oh, good.
down the stairs, because I know that my knees are screwed completely. And I was able to like quickly restore my balance. Otherwise, if I was moving quicker, like I'd be tumbling down the fucking stairs in an instant. That's like a guaranteed 120%.
Sweet. I'm
Mm.
just glad you didn't die or something. You weren't like trying to come down a flight of stairs with a box in the shows when they're like,
No. Back in the day before the car accidents, I was actually running up and down the stairs. I had like a specific training regiment, which was what we did back in the border guards regiment.
mm-hmm.
We had this special training regiment. Well, it's not that special, but it was good. And we would used to like run up and down the staircases for hours, and
Oh wow.
just like to do, well, with rests like throughout the day when we had like training days, physical exercise training days. And we would not carry extra gear. We would just like do it for endurance training, and that's perhaps like one of the best cardio exercise, and it's also perhaps the best for the knees.
Oh yeah.
uh, yeah, and but uh, after the first car crash, man, no, I'm not the same person. I can't.
It's tough
I
when you.
can't. Yeah, I can't. If you know what I'm going to say, is that when you have like a sharp change in weather, you feel it in the fucking knees.
It's
You
like
can sense the weather change.
now you become a barometer. Congratulations.
You're a fucking barometer. Like, ooh, my knees are cracking. I've become that old lady from the prequels, the Star Wars
Ah,
prequels,
yeah.
who says like, Annie, I can feel it in my bones. It's a sandstorm is coming.
Huh.
Eh,
Did you use that in your writings at all? Inspire anything in your writing?
Yes, I did. I used it. I have a character, which is like a really old Kiora. And Snow,
mm-hmm.
that Dozan is of the same species. Although they might look tiger-like, they're just tiger-like. They're not the same. They do not share any uh, other resemblance. They're like visual, perhaps like in the heads. They don't have whiskers. They don't have tails. The teeth are a bit different. Yes, they are described as tiger-like. So I have this character who is a really, really old Killra. He is a captain, starship captain, who is named Kuma Re. And Kuma in Japanese is bear. It means bear.
Oh really?
Yes. And Kuma, he doesn't know. He of course, like as all allies of Earth, he's fascinated with Earth. And when he navigates his ship to visit Earth and get some upgrades and refits for his starship, he's like he thinks that yes, we'll finally get some rest, and my crew, because they're all old, like most of the officers are really old. They are over like 400 years old, because they live up to like maybe 500. And he has been through a whole list of injuries: shattered bones, liquefied organs, been blown to bits, almost like they cloned his limbs over like how many times. Uh, Total nerve reconstruction, partial brain reconstruction. He's like perhaps like some percents of his body is still like the same, which he was born with. The rest is like regeneration, cloned limbs and shit. But like he is, even that has been broken and recovered. He even doesn't remember how many times. And in his case, when he drops, like he does a like atmo drop with like combat atmo drop, PD drop with a lot of G's, because the G's they task your body tremendously, and his body is yeah, it's not new. And when he does that, like he can, he doesn't need a scanner, he doesn't need sensor input. He can tell you what like the G load is like, and how the pilot flies and what they do. Even if he is not in the cockpit, he's sitting like somewhere in the back in the passenger compartment. He's like, yes, the pilot is doing this maneuver and they're doing that at this. So yeah, I did use it. Yep.
Very cool. I know that usually when it comes to injuries, they for me anyways, they find a way into my writing. Some of the when it comes to injuries, it's really is harder to imagine what particular pain is like with particular injuries. But once you kind of go through those motions, it becomes almost like this ability to just pull from your pain and put it into words because you actually went through that physical endurance. And sometimes you actually pull out some good stuff that otherwise you would have never known may have been associated with particular injuries.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, it does.
Yes.
I think it actually. You're young, so I don't know how on earth you have injuries. Did you actually injure yourself?
I mean, nothing permanent, thankfully, but you go through life, you get scraped up, you go through the motions.
Guys,
I gotta ask, did you ever fall on your back, on your waist,
ow.
or on your knees?
On my
I'm just
waist.
asking.
Oh, me?
I'm just asking. Yeah.
I think I think Snow has more fall
Yeah,
damage
yeah, yeah, I
experience
know, I
than me.
know, but like I'm asking you, James.
Oh, you? Yeah, yeah.
I hurt my back a little bit when I was sliding down a ladder once, but that was
Uh,
about it. Nothing permanent.
how old were you then?
I was probably like 23. I was
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
giant empty I was in a giant
yeah.
empty Sam's Club store, which is like a Walmart. Looks
Uh,
creepy when it's empty.
Oh, really?
so I did that. I fell on my back 3 times. First, the first time was when I was in the army. I was 18. I fell on the training grounds, and it wasn't high. It was like 2 meters, maybe like 5.5 feet or something.
Wow. Yeah.
It wasn't that bad. And I felt nothing. I kind of bounced back, like, yeah, no, it's not. The second time I fell from a truck, and I think it was about your age. I was like maybe 23, maybe 24. We were unloading a truck. We had like a job, a temporary job, and we were unloading this truck. Was full of vegetables. I think it was vegetables, um, like boxes of tomatoes or something. Yeah, and I slipped. There was like something on the ramp. There was a hydraulic ramp at the back, and I slipped and I fell from the ramp. And I also like, yeah, it's nothing. That's fine. The third and the last time that I fell, at that time I fell from about like I think it was 7 or 8 meters. And I had the incredible luck of not smacking my back on like the concrete floor, but I actually fell on some crate, some not crates, boxes,
Hmm.
cardboard boxes stacked. They were full of stuff, but it's like actually yeah, it's softer than the fucking concrete. But I woke up in the hospital, kind of like blacked out, and the doctor was like, "Yeah, you think you're not feeling it now, but wait, like 12, 15 years down the lane, you're gonna feel it." And the doctor was correct. So I really hope that it's nothing permanent in your case, James, because it's like all of these things, all of these injuries that we have, and we bounce back when we're young. We think nothing of it, but later when we grow up, like suddenly it comes and hits us like a ton of bricks.
Right.
Yeah, that's one you don't hear too often. Well, sometimes I read about it in some literature, but that's one you don't see people pull from too often is those old wounds
Ooh,
coming
give me a
back.
second. I'll pull from the book itself. Like give
Okay,
me a
okay.
second.
I think R.H. Snow had something to say.
No, it's the truth is yes. I think that actually when you incorporating pain into the story, we've talked a little bit about personal journeys before. We've talked about our personal pains, but usually we're referring to the emotional pain. Actually referring to our real physical pain, referring to the what that thing where you're young and you fall and it's awesome and you get back up and it hurts for a little bit, but chicks dig scars and we're all cool. And I've said often in our family we burn bright, we burn fast. And that's the way we are. We have a tendency to burn out real quick, and it's one of those things that, based on the fact that I have a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which means that my joints are really loose and wiggly, and there's a few other things that go with it too, and I have several complications that go with that. So I've always had arthritis since I was I think it's 18, 19 years old.
Ooh, that's no bueno.
No, it was well. I had it. I actually had to go to a rheumatologist. They checked me out, and I was having a whole bunch of difficulty walking, and it was like really hard. And I still did everything I wanted to do. I was a scout leader, and I went on hikes. I had to have extra help because I would actually use a cane. I actually made my own walking stick. Now, a walking stick is super awesome because it doesn't look like a cane. It makes you feel like a queen because you can whack people with it. So you get a really and you just use it like a bow staff on people. And I put a little deer's foot on it and everything. It made me feel cool. Now, I did get better later. I went through a period where it seemed like I was really getting a lot better. So I was cool with that. But those wounds, that's the reason why I don't notice pain when it happens as much, because I've lived with it all my life. So in the book, Watcher of the Damned, one of the things I wanted to do was incorporate that. We read so many stories and they get over their pains. They just get over it. The hero gets wounded and he immediately moves on. And he doesn't really feel it as much. And one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to help my readers feel what it really feels like to go out and to fight, or to go out and, battle a wildfire, and you're tired and your muscles ache and you're going to ache the next day because of what you did today. And for Rose, my main character, one of my main characters, she's one of two actually. I've got dual characters that are the main characters. I've got the Watcher and Rose, and she's the feminine side of the main character. And so she's very small. She seems like she is young. She's actually not. That's a spoiler. So if you're reading, you'll find out that Rose is actually quite old. But she doesn't look like it because she has a certain story that will let. I can't tell the spoilers. That's what I always hate doing that. So she has a knee that pops every time she wakes up. One of the first things we see her do is she straightens out that leg, and most people don't. It's not just your knee popping. You have to raise it, and you hold it in a certain position, and you feel it actually that bursa. There's a little sac in there that'll move, and it goes pop. and it's related to your bones and wearing out and things like that. And she straightens her leg out and she pops and she wonders why life has to be so hard and so beautiful at the same time. It actually affects things that she does. She still climbs trees, she still runs, and she still bounces around, but she thinks about it when she's jumping out of a tree or if she's getting down from a high place, about her leg and how it hurts. And it comes up frequently because some wounds don't go away. One of my other characters, and I have, of course, we have wounds that result in death, and I can't give out those because of spoilers. But I have one of my other main characters, Araceli Diaz, and she suffers a crushing injury from a horse rolling on her foot.
Ooh.
I have seen these injuries. I know what they look like. Those little bones just being crushed and the foot is just flat. It looks like a roller's gone over it. It is a very gruesome and devastating injury because it's likely to be infected. It is almost impossible to keep them clean. And those crushing injuries are devastating. And so I have 3 tiers of characters. I have my main characters. I've got my big 5 that you'll meet throughout the book. Then I have a second tier of characters. There's about 7 to 10 of them that are actually there, that they're coming in and out of the story frequently. And Araceli's on that second tier. And then there's a third tier that they're occasional characters. And so Araceli is one of our main characters, and she has this crushing injury. It does not go well. It is not something she just gets up and gets over. It affects how the party fights. You have an injured party. You can't just do something with them and throw them in a wagon and then everything's cool. They don't just get better immediately. They don't stay quiet. They're crying. They're upset. They hurt. They're going to moan. If you actually manage to medicate them, how are they going to react? What happens when the wound isn't healing? And in fact, for the thing that was kind of freaking me out last night, because I'm like looking at my leg, and this is my left leg. And it's her left leg, and it's not a crushing injury, but it was a similar injury. And I'm like, dude, maybe I should write the story differently. And it's like, nope, it has to happen. So the book that just came out, Caballeros del Camino, it's a whole story related to what happens to Araceli with this terrible crushing injury, and how is she going to die? Are they going to be able to fix it? Because in primitive conditions, a crushing injury is almost certainly going to lead to death. So we have a whole storyline devoted to that. And I wanted from the very beginning to incorporate pain and injury into the story, because too often it's okay to write these fight scenes, but if you really want to make an impression on why the hero wants to win, make sure you incorporate pain, because he's trying to avoid it. He's going to try to keep himself from being that person in the back of the wagon dying a slow death. He's going to make sure he can fight. And he may have little injuries. He may have things that bother him. He may lose. If you lose a tooth in a fight, it's not growing back unless you're magical. And if you get hit in the face, you're probably going to have some bruising and swelling that's going to stay there. Scars happen. Things. And so keeping track of them, I actually had to make a notepad of all the injuries that the watcher gets during the course of this story. And if you read the story, his scars get more and more and more. By the time we get finished drawing this guy, he's going to look like, a hashtag, because he's going to have so many scars on him. But he gets injured as well, and gets injured frequently just fighting, and has to heal up and get over it a little bit. And you get to a certain point in your life where you realize that's just part of being a hero. It's part of being who you are. If you're going to run into danger, you're going to get scars. And anybody who lives long enough will have their body remind them of who they were when they got that injury. That little twinge here, that little nagging pain there. Some of the big ones, when you talked about your wreck. When my husband had his wreck, and it was a terrible wreck, we thought he was going to die. He did. Actually, we had to revive him on the table. And I say I was not in the room at that point. But they had to revive him while they were bringing him in from the helicopter. And when you have those kind of wrecks, he lays down at night and he'll be hurting, and I'll say, do you want something to make it better? He says, no, pain reminds me I'm alive. And he'll straighten out and he gets better. And by the next morning, he feels good enough to get back up and go at it again. Pain is a reminder of the battles you fought. And it can be very difficult to deal with chronic pain, but it is a story about your life. Just like the scar, the pain is a real reminder of where you've been and the battles you fought.
Yeah, I remember, and in this is the fifth book in the series. I wrote exactly about that aspect of, especially in like a long military service, and in this case, it was like hundreds of years, 300 years almost, military service. And I'm not saying that ground service is it's not tasking, but space is an entirely another beast on its own. So he, what can I say? So there is a scene where his adjutant, who is one of the samurai elite guard from of the Shimazu clan, and this is obviously the alternate history Earth of Star Shatter we're talking about. And he's the adjutant of the Captain Kumare, and the captain has been given command of a Terran ship built by the Shimazu, and the crew, of course, and everyone. And there is a scene where he's giving commands, and he's sitting in his captain's chair on the bridge, and he's giving commands, but he has to leave the bridge, and he gets up perhaps a bit too like, too quickly, too suddenly, too rapidly, and his back like cracks, like some of his vertebrae crack, and he, of course, he doesn't show it because he's professional. He has 3 centuries of combat experience and command experience, and he's like, his face is a mask, a poker face of professionalism. But as soon as he actually leaves the bridge, he leans on his like his adjutant, and he's like, "You're back. Are you feeling well? Perhaps a short visit to the hospital base in order." And he says, like, "My back is fine. It held my sorry bones upright for nearly 3.5 centuries. It will continue to do so for at least one more year." And he's acutely aware that he's dying. That's like perhaps his last few star months of command, or maybe like a year or something, if he's lucky, maybe two. And he's obviously in a lot of pain, and not even the regenerative medicine can help. Like you said, yeah, if they hit you and if they knock out your teeth, um, it's not going to grow back. Here it does. It does grow back,
That's
but
handy.
it grows back with a price.
Ooh.
Growing stuff back is immensely painful, and not everyone can grow everything back, because everyone's like tolerance for pain, the tolerance for pain of their organism is different. And in some cases, this also handy, incredibly genius and miraculous, quote unquote, medicine can instead of healing you, it can kill you. Your organism may not survive the healing process, and you will die.
Wow.
So yeah, it's super nifty. Yes, you even have these like expensive nanobots, medical nanobots that can kill, like stitch you up from the inside, like cure stuff like plaque in your blood vessels, like remove parasites if you have parasites in your intestines, or like, let's say, help your body cure cancer. But they're not like, they're super useful, but they cannot do everything. And even after getting healed, you're still left with scars. It's like impossible. It's impossible uh, to not survive the healing unscathed. It's impossible.
Oh wow.
That's
Can't imagine.
that's an interesting way to kind of keep your characters from becoming immortal, so to say. Because that's one thing that when introducing forms of both injury and medicine, you got to think about the implications. Like I
Yep.
have a character in my current series called the Villain. He's one of three main characters. Ends up getting stabbed in the side, and the way that the story's unfolding was a bit slow, and I had to kind of skip a week to kind of allow some healing to take place, because I was planning on kind of writing the story one day, one evening at a time, and just kind of letting it flow that way. But I decided, if I want him to heal in real time and every story is a single day, it's going to be like 8 or 9 stories before we see him again out there doing something. So I had to kind of skip some time forward to make sure that he's at least healed up enough to be out and about and affecting the world.
You know what?
Yeah,
We never.
that's how you do it.
I love that, because I don't ever think about my villains getting injured. I mean, my villains have a bad day, so now you're gonna make me. You're gonna make me give one of my villains a bad time. You're gonna make me. I'm gonna write it in. I'm gonna give one of them a bad time, and it's gonna make them even worse. I'm gonna give them something that's just gonna make them just horrible to live with completely.
Yeah, that probably should be, because I in the beginning, when I was considering writing, like telling stories, well, of course, I thought about injuries, but it was like not on a deeper level. Though I did think like, further than the surface level, like the scars, like the cool facial scars, and let's say the pirate's eye patch and this and that. But when I had like chat with some really old people, and some of them were in different wars.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, when they told me, yeah, this and that, like getting shot, and it's not like the movies, and I'm like, yeah, obviously it's not like the movies, otherwise, like, it's gonna be insane. But tell me more. And of course, them telling you it's not the same. It's not the same as you getting shot. Of course it's not. But you get a much better realistic view on things. It's not like, yeah, I'm getting shot, I'll just like, no problem, I have like let's say 6 inches of a steel blade in my thigh, no problem, I'll just keep walking. No, you won't. No, you fucking won't.
Well, here's the thing about blade injuries. Don't remove that blade. You don't know if it's actually blocking the blood flow, and we've talked about actually with heart injuries. So you actually can have people that will walk with a knife wound. A lot of times they'll pull it out and then realize that you've got a bleeding wound. So for that, and you don't want to walk around with a knife in you either.
Yeah. They kept telling me that in the army. It's like,
yeah,
if you get stabbed, don't walk around like an idiot, because you'll make it better. You'll make it worse.
Yeah, the moving will make it worse, but pulling out the knife as well, or the impact object can actually
just stay there and don't do it. Like, don't move, don't try to pull it out. Like, just wait for the medic. If in the ideal case.
Yeah, the only time you would be doing that is so if you have something small and obviously in the muscle, you could possibly do it. But even then, you could nick an artery that you weren't expecting to nick while you're pulling it out. So it's just one of those things that you're like, well, what do you do if you get stabbed by something? And it's, yeah, try to find somebody who can apply pressure after you pull it out to see if it's going to, bleed all over the place or not. We frequently have this hero do that where they'll pull a knife out and just throw it down. And that has happened, believe it or not. People have yanked it out and gone on to, fight a war or fight a battle. But typically they do that and they're going to bleed out right there if it's at a main artery. So knowing where we're putting those wounds when we're writing those stories is super important. I think that if that's nothing can take you out of the story faster than if somebody does something that's unbelievable without a cost. Adrenaline can do crazy stuff. We've seen people that were injured very badly that can actually get up and move mountains just briefly because they're so overamped and they've still got control of their bone and musculature is in place or whatever. But once that adrenaline wears off, usually death is imminent. And so it's really important to write it the right way. If you have your hero do something that's just incredible, make sure that you have something in the back of your head that's telling you that this is plausible. Because a knife to the heart that's pulled out and thrown down, unless he has super clotting powers, chances are he's going to die.
Yeah. And there's an importance to that as well, because I see it in some movies all the time. Somebody takes a major injury and they're up and walking around in no time. But that kind of removes layers of like consequence and the thrills, and it removes the threat, which any given weapon ending up in the hands of an adversary in a physical fight should always increase their threat. And when you allow the wounds and the pain to linger throughout your story, what you're also doing is you're creating like an echo of that threat to pull the character back to that moment. And there's a lot writing wise you can do with that, which I find a lot of more action packed literature often overlooks the literary tool that comes with pain and injury.
Yeah. No, remember my Asgardian, Brunner?
Mm-hmm.
He, at one point, he nearly dies because he's heavily wounded and he pushes himself too hard, way over his limits. And he, like, the only way that they were able to barely keep him at the brink of death was by shoving him in a stasis pod. And like, if he gets out, if he gets taken out of the stasis pod, he would die like in perhaps a minute or two. So like, it's he's by all intents and purposes he's dead. He's dead, and they have no miraculous way of saving him because of his specific physiology, because he's Asgardian, and they want to help him. Of course, they want to help him, but to help him, they actually have to go back to Asgard, meaning that someone has to go over the Rainbow Bridge and go back to Asgard and find someone of sufficient power who can help them, because he's not just like physically wounded, but his Odin force is drained, and it's like someone has to drag his stasis pod around. It's what I I remember reading about these pods, these iron lungs, Snow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember reading about them, and I said, like, wait a minute, this is too good not to be used in writing, in my writing, and I have to use it somehow. And I did use it, and
Really?
it was great. Because yes, these stasis pods, they are like, oh yes, this is a miraculous technology. It keeps you alive. You can sleep over long voyages in space. But in many cases, if the field is distorted or something happens, you're going to die. And of course, they use them for medical purposes, like to save people, to keep people alive until they find a way to heal them. And on some places, some planets, they have like huge storages of like millions of pods, like millions of people who are just like sleeping and waiting the advance of medical science, so that like some incurable disease, their incurable disease or whatever it is that they're suffering from, can be cured or healed. And some people have found like civilizations where they have fallen into disrepair, they have degenerated, and there are like, let's say, a mega city, and they find like this ginormous hospital which is capable of housing and healing over 200,000 people, and they found like giant underground storage of stasis pods, like which have no longer uh, getting like their energy supply, and like you have millions of people who are just like entombed there in their pods.
Oh, wow.
That's definitely quite the sight when I imagine that. Very very eldritch almost.
Very apocalyptic.
That sounds
Yeah.
like those underground, the tombs that are in, I believe, in Poland and also under Italy.
Yeah.
Oh, have you ever seen anything like that in, like, or do they have those in Bulgaria, Black Knight?
Yeah.
They do.
Some underground tombs.
We have, well, not so much underground, but we have a couple of churches
Okay.
which like that, and they are leftovers from the Ottoman quote unquote presence in our area. And you have hundreds in like hundreds of people, like
Uh-huh.
stacked high to the ceiling.
Oof. That sounds
Yep. In Serbia, they have them too. I think there was like a tower,
very god.
famous tower in Serbia, where they entombed the bones in the, like, the walls of the tower itself.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, that is very gothic.
No, that's so cool that you. There's things that,
No, gothic.
and we don't. I think that it's so. I'm just not morbidity. I wrote a poem last night, for instance. It was actually just off the cuff. I just wrote like a
Oh.
stanza haiku. This is just about my encounter with, when I went into the morgue, and it's like there's nobody in there. It wasn't anybody in there with me. It was just bare. It's because it's a very small hospital. You have to have a place to wheel people
Yeah.
in, where you clean up, and you go in there. And so, and of course, I was in the overflow basically at that point. But it's not morbid to ponder death. I said it hits a little different when you're 62 and you're injured and you're thinking, okay, maybe I'm going to die, But it's not the same. It's not a matter of being bad. It's not gruesome to do it when you think of it in the proper context. All of us die. We all are dying. We're all on a journey towards our own ultimate destination of home, and so we have this fascination with death. And when we talk about injury, it's impossible to talk about that without talking about death. Some people are just snuffed out in a second. You don't even know how they are gone. You look around and suddenly they're just not there. But there are other people that linger for a while. And so we have this need to actually think of mortality, and people are almost afraid to do it. They either do it from a almost a pornographic viewpoint. For instance, we've had a famous video just this last week of a Russian soldier being hunted by a drone, and the difference is when you're seeing a drone strike from far away, but to have it up close and have it shown to millions of people who are ogling it and admiring it, talking about the person dying, and it becomes pornographic. And we want to stay away from that image of death where it's entertainment. Death is entertainment, should not be something that happens in real life. But to be interested in what happens, to understand it, to try to wrap our heads around this thing that happens to all of us isn't morbid. And I can imagine, these great temples with the bones piled high are there not only as a reminder of the battles and the things that people have gone through in that particular area, it is also a reminder that one day we all shall join them. And I think we've moved away from that reverent interaction with death, and have made it more of it's entertainment. It happens to someone else until it happens to someone we love, and then our minds begin to change about it. So when you see those, that injury, and we talk about it leading to death, or we talk about it leading to a life-altering outcome, certainly it's not easy to think about it, but I think incorporating it into our stories, when you talk about the injuries that actually change someone's life, that change the trajectory of your hero or of your characters, and I have several actually in the story. That's where we get our older characters usually turn into spies, or they turn into advisors, they turn into consultants, just like in real life. In the fire service, we have a lot of people that get injured because it's just what we do. You're out doing dangerous things. When it happens, you don't stop serving in the fire service. You take on a consultancy. You become one of the people that shows up at the bad scenes, who goes straight to the command tent and starts helping, or you may stand to the side and run the pump, or you might be the one that drives the truck, but you're not out flapping the flames, with your own flapper. That's for somebody that can move fast enough to get out of the way. Well, the same thing happens in battle. Just because you're injured doesn't mean you get to retire out of it. If you're in a place where you need to survive, where you can't just leave the scene, you can't leave the battle, then you have to learn how to adapt and overcome. You're still fighting, you're just fighting a different kind of battle. You may not be able to fight with your hands like the way you used to, but you will fight in a different way. That's where weaponry comes in. That's the reason why most of the old masters, they were old because they managed to survive, and they relied on weaponry and intelligence to keep them alive, not necessarily strength. As we move forward in our age, we end up using more and more the gifts of intelligence and training, and mean further away from the actual strength that is accompanies youth. And writing those into our stories certainly, I think, can help the story move along, because it takes us into a different arc that the reader may not have anticipated. It's not just a flat arc of where there's this person that's a hero and he does all the things all the same all the time. Those stories do exist, and they're wonderful. There are several that I can think of, notably Sledge. He's always tough all the time. Conan the Barbarian is another one that he gets older, he gets scarred, he does actually change, but he's always Conan the Barbarian. He's always the strongest man in the room, pretty much until the very end. And those stories, they have that flat arc. For most of us, though, the story can be made richer and fuller if you have your heroes learn to adapt and overcome their own injuries and their own shortcomings that occur through that heat of battle, and the injuries that happen along the way.
You want me to tell you more about that skill tower?
Yes.
So it's in Serbia, and it's during the like later part of the Ottoman quote unquote presence, and that was probably during the same time when like all across this part of their empire, we were rebelling. And of course in Serbia they rebelled too. um and this is like it's built in the city of Niš. and it's constructed by the Ottomans after the, I think, was it like the Battle of Kamenitsa, um, May 1809.
Ooh.
So the story goes as like during the battle, the Serbian rebels under the command of uh, Stevan Sindelic, they were surrounded by the Ottomans on a certain hill near Niš, and they knew that they would be tortured, probably impaled on stakes, as it was like the Ottoman custom. So Sindelic detonated the powder magazine of their fortress, blowing up himself, what was left of his troops, who were like most of them, they were wounded and dying, and of course all the fucking Ottomans who had been like climbing over the walls and slobbering. It's like, yeah, we got them, and everything explodes. So the Ottomans were livid. They were totally livid, and I think one of the pashas, like who was in command of this area, he commanded to like build a tower. Like it's not super tall, super high. Like it's, I think it was like 20 feet or something tall, and they entombed like over 1,000 skulls of the Serbians
Wow.
in it. So they actually boiled the bodies of the rebels.
Uh-huh.
They removed the bones. They took the skulls. They brought them to the Sultan, and after the Sultan approved, they brought them back to Niš, to Serbia, and they built the tower. And it was like, look, we're so scary.
Mhm.
But the problem was the fucking tower. It actually it backfired. That's like it created more
Resentment towards them.
more resentment and more rebels. And
Yeah.
in some like in
Well,
and I think it was in was it in 1870s, in the 1870s, I think one of the pashas said like, no, we have to demolish it, like it's getting too bad. And they attempted to demolish it, but they couldn't because they had to withdraw.
Yeah.
um yeah, so right now this tower, it's one of the Serbian national monuments.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting.
what that's the Alamo effect, basically. You go in
Yep,
and you
yep, yep, yep,
slaughter.
exactly.
You say, oh, we're going to show you that you can't ever do that. It becomes a monument to, like you said, that pain and that death is a monument to heroism. There is no sacrifice without pain. There is no greater love hath no man than this, than he lay down his life for his friends, if that doesn't occur. And they underestimate that Judeo-Christian influence of that sacrificial love. And it does exist also in Eastern culture. It exists in other cultures as well. That sacrificial love and that willingness to take pain in order to save something you love exists all over the world in most cultures, but there are cultures that do not recognize it. There are cultures that do not recognize the sacrificial nature of that love and of laying down one's life for someone else. And they underestimate, when they run into this phenomenon, they underestimate what happens to people when they see that tower of pain, when they are
Yes, because
reminded of
they're
the sacrifice.
cowards. They're cowards at heart. Their culture, um, like it foments cowardice, and
Yeah.
they enshrine it. It's like, yes, we'll do the goblin thing where we'll swarm these like people and slaughter, like rape them and slaughter them and chop them to pieces, and we'll show them. We'll show the rest. and yeah, it doesn't work.
Well, and it is. It's one of those things that I think that when we're talking about pain and literature, when we're talking about sacrifice and death and everything, injury, pain, scars, suffering, it is part of the journey. If we recognize our genre, we were talking before about, like I said, heroes with flat arts. They're there to provide us with the entertainment and the fun of a story that's action oriented. That certainly is in a different area. But even then, usually your hero has some sort of pain. He just immediately overcomes it and goes and bashes someone else, and it's all fun. But for a lot of us who are dealing in different genres, we're looking at that arc of what happens to the person and where does it take them. And a story really ascends when a reader who is reading it because they just wanted that beautiful escape and they get it, suddenly finds a piece of their own missing puzzle in your story. When we speak to that human experience of pain and suffering, sacrifice and death, in such a way that it doesn't overburden the story, but instead uplifts it, it can change lives. And I've spoken about this in some other respects with regarding the journey of infertility and miscarriage and the devastation of childlessness and child loss. And when we write those stories in such a way that it doesn't become a beat down, but instead becomes part of the greater picture, people will respond to it. Readers actually will reach out to you as an author and say, "You changed my life because you included this in your story in such a way that it wasn't a victimization, but instead was an elevation."
Yeah, that's that sense of the personal journey. My little virtual camera with the sandwich went off, so I'll be just rocking the avatar. But that's that sense of that personal journey that you get, that you can accent your fiction with to help bring it to life, because that's really, people read fiction not only for entertainment, but it's often used as a way of delivering metaphors and delivering um, epic journeys to people's doorsteps, wrapped in much more than just an entertaining foil. And when you add those in, that personal touch, someone else out there often understands, and that's where you create that bridge between the reader and the writer. I think one of the most, because you were talking about death earlier, often in fiction we have this romance of death. They kind of, turn death into this romantic thing. When I had the unfortunate experience of watching a number of people have to pass away, and I think the best portrayal of death is often the one that a lot of people actually remember, and or at least one of, I should say, and that's from Terminator 2, the Miles Dyson character, who's sitting there shot up with bullets trying to hold this thing up, because as soon as it falls down, it sets off an explosion, and he's just gasping for one breath after the other breath, and you just, with every single breath, you could just, sense the aura of his pain. And I think when you capture that in as real a sense as possible, you create that connection, something that sticks out from the thousands of other romantic death sequences that have been put to camera, where somebody has received a terrible injury, but they're talking perfectly fine, they're breathing okay, and then they just close their eyes, like they just went to sleep.
Yeah, the dramatic trope, like yeah, yeah, yeah.
How many of you have actually ever seen someone die?
Yes, of
Yeah,
cancer,
yeah.
of cancer.
I've seen a few. I've seen a few.
And this is what I think is missing in a lot of people's lives in nowadays. And you guys have seen it, because the chances are with you, James, that you had a close loved one that you wanted to be there for them as they were making their last breath. And for Black Knight, it's simply a matter of experience, being out in the world, being a military man, and being out in the world doing things. You've seen this death occur. Those who haven't seen it don't know, and it is hard to write. One of the hardest scenes that I've had to write recently was I was actually writing a scene in my latest book. It's not in Caballeros, it's in Hellbelly Highway, where the Watcher kills a man, and the Watcher is angry. This is not a fight scene. It is where he is killing this person. They've run afoul of the law. They've tried to hurt Rose, and he is going to kill them. And when he does, I am describing what I have seen when death occurs. It is a drawn out process. It is not pretty. It is absolutely terrifying if you are not used to that. I'm talking here about a trauma death. And a trauma death is very difficult to handle. And I was aware of this when I wanted to draw it out as a warning to people that this is not, shouldn't be glamorized. Somebody who is fighting to save someone else, who wants to make sure that this person never harms them again, is doing a service that people have done throughout the centuries. There are some men that just need killing. There is no other way to gloss it over. There's no other way to explain it. Hope we don't get dinged for that. But there are people who have made choices that are irredeemable with life. They cannot be allowed to continue. When this occurs, it is not to be glorified. And that act of taking another human being out of the planet because they have done something so horrible that you must remove them before they do it again is a tough act to do. And when you describe death accurately, it can be a wake-up call to other people that this is not a game. You're not playing a game. This is not quick. And in fact, it comes up a couple of times in the story where Rose is, who actually has to shoot someone at one point to try to save herself, is very conflicted about it. She's very torn about how it went down, what happened, because she wasn't expecting. She'd always done things from a distance. Now she did it up close to save herself. And when she did, it affected her deeply and will continue to affect her throughout the story. When we make death too clean and the people just close their eyes, turn a backflip, and they're dead. That really does happen sometimes. Yes, there are people who are literally taken out because the trauma is just so great, they're snuffed out in a blink. Most of the time, it's a ragged, drawn-out process. Even when you are dying of an injury, it can take several minutes to several hours. And
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're hearing you. You're good.
But agonal breathing occurs. It's actually a type of breathing where it's very ragged. It happens irregularly. You'll see this close to death. The fingers and lips will turn blue. Even if you have an injury death, people will go through a particular process in dying, and it takes a while. We have to remember that for most people who have never seen death, one of the reasons that they have a problem with taking it so lightly, why they think of it as entertainment, is because they haven't actually had to deal with death. Literature, when it explains it properly, when it approaches the subject with reverence, can describe it with all the graphic detail that is necessary to ensure that the reader knows this is not a light act. And at the same time, it can be used to educate others that this is not a game. It's not something that just happens and it goes away. People hurt, they suffer, they die. Even your enemies hurt and suffer when they die. And you have to recognize that in order for you to remain human. And when we write it in such a way that we know something about it, that we share what we know, and we make sure that our audience understands the gravity of death and injury and suffering, maybe we'll reach a reader who will be less likely to inflict pain and suffering on others if they understand the true nature of the cost.
Yeah. And one of the old people who I interviewed years ago, he said that during the war, when they captured someone and he was like wounded, and he was like badly wounded. He was, I think, shot by a rifle through, like, twice through the lungs, and he was suffering. They tried to patch him up, but it was evident that he was dying and he was suffering, and he actually asked them to end his suffering, because he was pretty much drowning in his own blood.
Wow.
And they, like, one of them, there was like one of them who was I think like a junior commissar. He was like, no, he's like he's evil, he's this and that, and he must suffer. And the soldiers, like, beat him up, and they shot, like, the wounded captive. So he wouldn't, like, because, like, their medic told them that he would agonize, like, for minutes. He wouldn't just die. It's not going to be like snap your fingers and he would die. No. So they actually shot him in the head so he wouldn't suffer. But they beat up the commissar. They beat him up.
Wow.
Yes, he was like, no, he must suffer, and yes, he's this and that, and they're like, no, why? And what happens next? Like, what happens when we are in, like, if we are in the same position? Well, they will leave us to suffer. Why?
Wow. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that can elevate the story, as opposed to just make it where it's this dark, terrible, place. We have a lot of stories like that out there right now. They're not just morally gray; they're morally negative. There's a darkness about them, that nothing matters, that we're all going to die anyway, and everything is just suffering and death. And I think kind of the reason I've sort of been avoiding Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, which I've heard is a fantastic book, but it's just very dark and it doesn't seem to have a redeeming. And I know it's going to take everything I have in me to read it because it just seems so dark.
I would recommend you read Blood and Frost. It's not dark fantasy, it's shadow fantasy. It's different. You'll see.
Everybody suddenly turned into robots. But I think that when we take it and say, why are we suffering? Why did this injury happen? If I had spent the last 2 weeks crying about the fact that I got my leg hurt, I would have missed all the other wonderful things that happened. If I was concerned all the time about the fact that I'm going to die at some point in the future, I will miss what the beauty is that's happening now. And if I think that my suffering is in vain, that it means nothing, that everything I've done in my life, or that if I gave myself to save someone else and they didn't care, they didn't want it, it would make me feel terrible. Then we realize it does mean something. When it means something to us, it is worth a cost. It doesn't have to rely on what the world thinks about our suffering, what the world thinks about our agony. If you rely on what other people think, you'll see them walking past your room while you're in there and you'll wonder why nobody noticed. Or you'll say, this person, I sacrificed myself for them and they don't love me, they don't care. Don't base your pain and suffering, the worth of what you have done, on the attitude of others. You have to realize you did it for a right reason. You did it because you have a streak of goodness in you because you have that holy fire within you, and it is not defined by a fallen, frail world. It is defined by the goodness within. Those who have suffered and died for seemingly no reason, who went through so much, who have done so much for others only to be thrown away and cast aside, that it was not in vain. Like energy, love, and goodness do not fail. They come back, they eventually succeed and win. Otherwise, what is heaven for? And so we live in this world of darkness and danger and everything else, but we are still able to overcome, to sacrifice, and to rise above. And somebody looks at the tower. I am sure that that tower in Serbia, the men who were dying that day wondered if anyone would ever remember. They never knew that somebody would. And yet you do. Somebody will know. Somebody will understand the pain you have suffered. Somebody will understand the injury that was caused. Somebody will fight for that justice. Somebody will remember you with love. You are not just a blot in the universe. You are not forgettable, a grain of sand that will wash away. You are exactly as God created you, the being you're supposed to be, and the energy that you expend trying to make this world a better place and to live and die as a human being worthy of the goodness will not be forgotten. There is a place for love and hope and justice. When we give that to our readers, when we tell them it's not for nothing that you suffered, we give them a chance to be reborn, not just in our eyes, but in their own eyes, that this too shall pass, that there shall be a day when it all is healed and it all goes away, and the good things that were here will remain and be true. And we have to remember that, and we have to give them a reason to remember as well. That is the elevation of great literature, that it not only takes your reader through the valley of the shadow, but it brings them out the other side and into the garden of light.
That's powerful, and it reminds me of a piece of literature I read once, without any spoilers or giving away the title. Um, I remember the segment of literature where this gentleman was essentially going through the multiverse, but it was portrayed as this magnificent library, and every single book had an ethereal glow to it. It could be seen through. It was almost crystallized, and they were all sort of singing songs. And when he cracked them open, he would sort of see these like nothing was describable, but it was all sort of energy based and bending and morphing of different colors and visages and vistas and wide landscapes bending and morphing along with them as if nothing were real and yet everything was real at the same time. And then he runs into this what do they call it? It was like a librarian, but there's an archivist. He runs into the archivist and he tells him you're in the archive of life, essentially. And he flips to the book where he's from, and he sees sort of his world bend and morph the way he knew it. And he asks the question before he's to return to the book for which he comes from. First, he asks him, "Are you God?" And he replies, "No, that like your world, there are places beyond here where there are mightier and more knowledgeable beings." And then he asks them, "Does anything we do matter?" Because he's seen sort of like his entire existence is encompassed in some piece of literature for a different universe, sort of say. And then he says, he's like, "Does anything we do matter?" And the archivist's reply is, "Everything you do, everything you do matters. Every little detail echoes. Every little jot is exposed for eternity. Everything, every breath matters. Not just not just the big, but also the small and the invisible decisions." And the last thing he tells me is, "The things that matter the most are those for which there are no other witnesses than yourself." And that's what you sort of reminded me of.
Wow.
Yes.
I'll be here all week.
No, you did great.
Yeah, but we're about to close out. I took a glance at the clock. We're about 6 minutes out. So, final thoughts on this magnificent discussion we have about, I guess, in a sense, life, pain, and the journey along the way. Black Knight, what are your final thoughts, and where can people find you?
Well, indeed, as you both mentioned, this is one of the things that sadly people who are swallowed by nihilism and affected by the purposeful spread of sadness and depression, which I'm sure you've noticed it. But yes, as they say, the demoralized people do not fight for themselves and others. So people who are swallowed by this, they kind of give up. And my advice is no, don't give up. Every little things you do, every word you say, every purposeful act of yours has a meaning. Your actions affect people, and even if you do not notice it, and in many cases you may be not, like, you may be convincing yourself that you're not doing anything purposeful, anything useful, but you are. So don't give up. Keep doing, keep creating, keep helping others. In many cases, even like a smile and a good word may save someone. You don't know. You never know. As for where you can find me, as usual, you can find me on my Substack, theblacknight.com, and you will discover all of my newest stories there, and haikus and other poems, of which I should write more recently. And of course, all of my published books you can find on Amazon, including my Star Shatter series, the 2 anthologies, A Mandate of Sword and Railgun, and The Blood of Tyrants, plus my 2 books about Velen and Voltorian, and my singular fantasy book, Lord of Bones.
All right, nice. I put up a dog cam. I'm really just laying on the floor because I got a nice. I got a nice plush rug the other day, so I'm laying on the floor, and I brought my mic and everything down here.
That's so adorable. Look at the puppy. Look at
that. He's laying right next to me right
He's
here.
so chubby. Look at his little chubby body.
He is chubby. He can get fatter too if we don't exercise him.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
He's my stalker. Everywhere I go, he goes. He won't leave me alone.
That's awesome. My dog.
He stalks you for food.
Yes.
Stalks me for everything. But Snow, final thoughts. Yes. Where can people find you?
I thought it was a great for being an open topic. We ended up actually going deep into some really deep stuff, guys. Congratulations. I think that you're right, Black Knight and James, both of you. Suffering and pain and death is part of this world. Injury and the changes that it makes to us, the things that happen to us, it's not just for nothing. This is our story. This is our adventure. The author is at work. And what sometimes feels like an absolute ending of all things is not. And we can feel that way, especially when you're lying on that bed and you think, I can't do anything here. I'm never going to get better. I'm never going to get over this. You don't know the effects that you have on the people who come in the caretakers, the other people that are out there, the way that you change their lives. I know because I've seen it. I know because my family members, my husband especially, has been there. There is a day where you will see the changes that you have wrought in this world, where you will find that answer that you were looking for. Why did this have to happen to me? Why did this take place? Until that moment, you fight with every breath to be the very best you can be from where you are, scars and all, injuries and all. Know that you are not forgotten. Know that you are loved, and that there is a better future awaiting you. Stick with it through the dark valley. There is a light ahead. And you can find me at watcherthedam.com, where I will be opening my own store soon. I'm actually working on it with my consultant to
Fun.
get making sure that we have our EPUBs out there, that if you download one, you buy it, it's yours forever, unlike it is on Kindle now. We're going to make sure that we have copies available for people, and eventually we're going to be going to fulfillment as we start to come out with our with a full series, and then we have our special editions that we're going to be having coming out, and we will start to try to sell those on my website. But for now,
Sweet.
you can find it there and at Amazon, and of course on Substack, where all the cool kids like James Esparza and Black Knight.
Yes, I didn't know you're opening a store. That's real cool. I can't wait to hear more about that. The dog is breathing. Somebody asked in the chat.
Yeah.
Is he breathing? Yes.
He's lazy. He's entitled. He's
whenever
like
whenever he's not like receiving attention, this is his default mode, is to go lay down and pretend he's dead all day.
It's just so adorable.
He's alive. He's alive. Yes, yes. He's always with me all day, and he's like an extra rug in the room. Everybody, thank you for watching. Come back next week. If you're watching this on the replay, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Come back for more. We got a lot of great conversations to be had, just like this one. And I want you guys to go out there, enjoy the rest of your day, write what you know, study what you don't know. And if you have an experience, jot it down, because you never know how that might affect somebody else's life. And you keep that experience eternal by sharing that experience in the written word. And with that, we are out of here, everybody. Have yourself a wonderful day. Don't get too hot out there. It's summertime. And grab yourself something cold to drink. Have a good one. Bye-bye now.
Yay.
We're